Larry Nelson, I've known him for a long time, but he's a man of faith. And Carrie, I appreciate what you talk about, because the faith community takes a beating. It really does. When you stand up for what you believe and you get criticized, like many do, and I think it should be all of us, if we believe what we believe. Well, this is a man of belief, and Jesus Christ is his Lord and Savior. And he doesn't back off. He'll win a tournament, and he'll praise God. And I appreciate that. But what I appreciate about him also, my youngest daughter graduated from high school with his youngest son, Josh. And I remember my daughter saying, you go to their house, and these people really, they walk the walk, and what they talk the talk. And that's what makes it. I could tell you all the tournaments that he's won and all the things he's done. But this man stands for what he believes. He and his wife, Gail, and their sons, Josh and Drew, are strong believers. And they stand out, and they work in the community to serve their servants. And they don't come across with the attitude of, we're here to be accoladed. And I'm going to just thank each and every one of you for being here to show how much we appreciate a man like him. And there's a lot of others around this community. But Larry, I'd like you to come on up, and I'm going to let him tell you, but he was born in Ackworth so long ago that when the mail came, the letter would say either Ackworth or Kennesaw, and it'd get to him. So give a round of applause to Larry Nelson.
Boy, this is terrific. What an honor it is for me to be here in front of all you guys and gals. I appreciate the opportunity. Who was it that told me they've been trying to get me here for 5 years? And it took somebody to counsel for me to get here? Was that's the deal? So I just wanted to tell you, Pat, it was the second best introduction I've ever had. The second one. I was fortunate enough to be paired with Arnold Palmer. He was my team member at the Disney tournament about, this is a long time ago. I had won maybe 5 events, and of course Arnold won 60 some odd events. And so they introduced our team, Larry Nelson and Arnold Palmer, on the first hole, and he says, now we have the team of Larry Nelson and Arnold Palmer who have combined to win 66 events on the PGA Tour. So I'm just going to tell you, it's not necessarily you have to be good, it's just who you're with that's important. But, gee, I just want to tell you, I haven't seen so many old people since my 50th high school reunion. I'm glad you're still here. But, you know, this is great. It's a great opportunity for me. I want to just mention one thing, or just ask you one thing. How many of you are doing what you thought you would be doing when you were serving in Vietnam? I mean, when you thought about what your life was going to be back when you came back to the world, are you there? Or are you doing something different? And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is because when I was in Vietnam, there were 2 things I could think about. Well, one thing I could think about, and my wife at that time was 18 years old, so I did think about her, but the biggest thing, they interviewed me, I guess, 10 years ago. He says, okay, when you're in Vietnam, what were you thinking about, the first thing you wanted to do when you got home? I said, I wanted a cheeseburger, French fries, and a chocolate milkshake. That was what I was thinking about when I wanted to come back. It did not make my wife very happy when I said that. But, you know, I got drafted, I got my draft notice to go join the Army or be a part of the Army 10 days after my 19th birthday, and had to report 10 days later. So I had 20 days from my 19th birthday until I had to start my basic training. There were so many people at that time, this was 1966, there were so many people being drafted and into the military in 66, they didn't have enough room in Fort Benning for us to go through basic training. So they bussed us, put us in a bus, sent us to Fort Hood, Texas. So I went through basic training in Fort Hood, Texas, that was just starting to do that, basically, because they were training so many people throughout the country that they had to make places for us to go. So they were going to try a new thing at that time. They were going to take a group of guys, put them in a unit, basic training, advanced infantry training, basic unit training, train us, send us to Vietnam as a unit. So in my company, there was one person who had been to Vietnam before. So we were all rookies. I mean, we were all new. When we got to Vietnam, we didn't know anything about it. We didn't know, for a lot of you, I was 11 Bravo, 11B40, all right? Yep, I was a squad leader, infantry squad. We got over there, we didn't even know how to blouse our boots. You know, we didn't know that you couldn't use little boot, whatever they call those things that you put down there, make your fatigues look good. Nobody told us to put our fatigues in our boots. So the first day I was out in the field, I got so many leeches on my leg. I mean, a lot of you who walked around the rice paddies and the jungles out there knew there were two kinds of leeches. One was a green leech, which was a water leech, which you got in the rice paddies. The other were little ground leeches, tough little rascals, little bitty things. And no matter where you were, if your boots, if your fatigues weren't pushed into your boots, those things would get up your leg, right? So we were rookies. We didn't know anything about it. And so we had to learn. It was kind of OJ, on-the-job training in Vietnam, basically. Our mission over there was, it was supposedly search and destroy, you know, our company, our battalion. Actually, what it was draw fire. I mean, that was what our actual mission was. The other one was supposed to be the other, you know, but we always found that that's what we were out in the field for, really, to just draw fire so that they could either send artillery or something else in there. But, you know, the great thing about the Army for me, when I talked about earlier, did you have any idea what you were going to be doing when you came back home, or if your ideas changed after you got back home? Well, in high school, I played baseball, basketball, and football. Golf was a sissy sport. I never played golf in high school. Not until I was drafted into the Army was I even around someone that actually thought golf was really a pretty good thing to do. I was in basic training out in Fort Hood, Texas, and a guy, Ken Humble, was one of my best friends. And so we were just sitting around playing poker and I asked him, I said, what do you enjoy? What was your biggest thing at home? And he says, well, I played golf. I played golf for Miami-Dade Junior College. And he was about 6'2" and a little bit bigger than me, so I didn't have the heart to tell him what I thought golf was. Yeah, that's just a sissy sport. What are you doing playing golf? But anyway, got back from Vietnam, played baseball all my life. I loved baseball, but I hurt my arm first time. I hadn't played baseball in a year, and it was July when I got back home, and actually the city of Kennesaw asked me if I would play or pitch, and fine. But anyway, I hurt my arm, couldn't pitch anymore, and it's something I really loved. And so I said, well, maybe I'll start playing golf. Maybe, you know, just see what it's like. See if Ken Humble liked it, maybe I'll like it. So I started playing golf. 3.5 years later, qualified for the PGA Tour. 3.5 years. Okay. A lot of people said, well, you know, that hadn't been done much before. I said, no, I don't think it has been. They said, what was your biggest motivation? I said, hunger. I had to get better or find something else to do. But a lot of you men, women, really are doing things now that you didn't really know that you were going to do then. And I appreciate every one of you for the success that you've become in the areas that you have become it in. I mean, it's really neat. It's really neat to come with a bunch of guys that served in the same area of the world that you did, that were able to survive and to come back and do the things that we've done here in this part of the world. I told Pat when I talked to him, I said, you know, I could speak for 45 minutes, and y'all would probably either go asleep or leave, one or the other. But what I'd like to do, and when I have the opportunity to do this, is actually ask people ask questions. I find a lot of times people leave knowing a little bit more than what they would have if I spoke for 45 minutes. My unit, I was first with 46th in the 198th Light Infantry, 198th Brigade of the Americal Division. And I was just south of Chu Lai, Vietnam. A little village, our base camp was Nuc Mao. Anybody know where Nuc Mao is? I was hoping somebody might raise their hand. There you go. Nuc Mao, yes. So anyway, that's where I was, and so it was kind of a neat thing. Yes.
All right. You know, I think the mistake you made is you asked for the shoes. You had said you wanted 3 bucks to chili.
You're right. That was the second thing. Yeah, that was the second. But that's neat. Yes, sir.
Which high school did you go to first and secondly? Didn't you work for Lockheed for a while? Did you?
I didn't know. You're right. Lockheed was the reason I got drafted. So just so you, I went to North Cobb High School. At that time, I graduated. There were 85 graduated with me, so it was a little bit smaller then. There were only 7 high schools in Cobb County then at that time. Now I think there's 40. I don't know how many there are now. It was amazing. But what was the other question? Lockheed. Yeah, my father worked at Lockheed for 40 years. But at that time, it had been 20 years, and so he kind of helped me to get a job at Lockheed. The reason why I was there is because I got a baseball-basketball scholarship at Southern Tech. So I was playing baseball, we were traveling. I didn't have enough money to do what some of the other guys did, so I decided, well, I'd kind of quit school and work for a little while to get enough money so I could go back and do, you know, on the trips what some of the other kids would do. But Army said they needed me more than Southern Tech did. So I got drafted then. But I worked at Lockheed. I actually had, when I got back from Vietnam, I had 3.5 years seniority at Lockheed, which was kind of nice because they counted that time as seniority. But when I came back, we were working, they were doing the C5 at that point. I was an illustrator, if you can believe this. You know, I was an illustrator. I'd go in and draw the insides of the airplane, pictorial. This is before cell phones and all the other stuff, but you'd have to draw this stuff so the electricians could come in and route the wires. So that was my job. But we were working 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the reason that I got back out of Vietnam 90 days early was to go back to school. So I had to go to school. So I was working 70 hours a week and going to school 6 hours a week at night, and did that for 6 months. And so that's the reason why I know golf and play golf. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Turning to your professional golfing career.
Yes.
Looking back on it and comparing it with today, with the innovations in equipment and the slight difference in size and musculature you can attribute to the PGA members today, how do you think you would fare today?
Better. No, it's funny when I say that is that everybody's better. I mean, all this equipment change and all this stuff has made everybody better. I mean, I spend some time with Jack Nicklaus. I've been fortunate to spend time with Arnold Palmer, Lee Trevino, you know, all the kind of really good players throughout the ages or whatever, and they've all said this and that about equipment now as versus equipment then. We were talking earlier, and I was telling the professionals, we used the wound ball when we were playing, and we would all carry a little, they call them ball gauges, They were just a little round circle with a smaller little round circle that the ball would slide through. And so we would take it, and every 3-pack of balls that we would get, we would take them and drop them through this. And you would find some of it would go through one way and wouldn't go through another. I mean, so the advantages that the guys have now, plus the condition of the golf courses, the scores, you know, are lower now than they were then. And, you know, right now I still hold the final 36-hole record at the U.S. Open for the lowest final 36 holes. And somebody asked me, he said, how do you do that? And I said, well, I got to play with wooden heads and round balls. That's how I was able to do it. So now, you know, with the 3-piece, 4-piece, 5-piece, whatever balls, they come out, all of them are identical. I mean, they're all identical. They go further, the harder you swing, and that's where the strength of these guys now means so much different. When I was playing, a long hitter like maybe Weiskopf would hit it 20 yards past me. Okay. This day and time, because of the equipment, the large size of the driver and the 4-piece ball or whatever, now guys are playing and they're hitting it 60 yards past them. I mean, the difference, because a Bellotta ball would only go so far. I mean, it would only go so far. Then it would go up. You know, these balls now are designed to go straight, long, whatever. So there's so much of a difference. But I think, going back to that, a big guy with a lot of talent is going to beat a small guy with a lot of talent in everything, pretty much. And so the guys are getting bigger. Weiskopf was an exception. You know, he was over 6 feet. Not too many good 6-foot golfers or 6'2", 6'3" golfers back when I played. Okay, there question in that. Let me just give y'all something that you can win a drink at a bar with. All right, I'm going to give you this little thing. There were four guys in the 80s that won 3 or more majors. There was Jack Nicklaus, Tom Watson, and Seve Ballesteros. Who was the 4th guy? Yeah, Larry Nelson. Nobody will get that. No, I'm just saying. I'm just saying that when you go to a bar, if you're out or whatever, he says, okay, I want to bet you, you know. Tell me the 4 guys that won 3 or more majors in the 80s. You will win every time. Every time. Any more questions? Yes, sir. You know, as far as I know, I may be the only professional golfer who had the CIB, a CIB. I'm not sure. I had to go back and look. You know, that is kind of a badge of honor in some respects, and it's gee, I wish I never earned it at all. But it's funny when you're in basic training and they're telling you all this stuff. I mean, in my first day at basic training, our DI said, okay, look to the guy at the left and look to your guy at the right. Said, one of you will not be here next year. And that's pretty eye-opening in that, either wounded or killed, 1 out of 3 or, you know, whatever. So that was kind of a badge of courage in a way, the CIB was. Everybody wanted it but didn't want the reason for it. I guess that because you were an infantry person, that was what you were trained for, so, you know, here we go. One thing, too, and this is interesting, I told you that we trained basic training, advanced infantry training, basic unit training, or whatever. We were with the same group through all that. The bad part about it was I had the DI that I had for basic training was with us the whole time. So he never left the basic training part. We did. We wanted to, but he never did. So we were in basic training for 18 months, basically what it was. You know, there are 4 companies in your basic training unit. There was A company, B company, C company, and ours was the front-leaning rest company. or platoon, because every time the platoons came by, here we were in the front leaning rest position. So, any other questions? Yes, sir, way back there.
Larry, what month of year did you report to Fort Hood? What month of year did you attend?
I reported to Fort Hood, it would have been in September, late September, 1966. I went to Vietnam in March 1968. So I trained almost for 18 months to go to Vietnam for 6 months, basically. And then when I was over in Vietnam, I got a 90-day early out to come back home. So I was only in Vietnam for 90 days. So I had one of the shortest tours without being injured or whatever. It was really, if you think about this, now I'm out in the field. Quick story, how much time do I have? I don't know where. Oh, I'll tell you, well, anyway. All right, my wife, all you guys that were in an infantry or anywhere in Vietnam, when we were out in the field, we could write a letter home on a C ration box, right? And didn't have to have a stamp, didn't have to do anything, and they would send it home. So my wife, who at that time was 18, would get these letters or get these notes or whatever that I would write or scribble when I was out in the field on the back of a C ration box or box top. Whatever we could write on, we could send home, and the U.S. mail would deliver it. Well, my wife, small town, Ackworth, my wife was able to go to the post office on Sunday afternoon because she knew the postmaster there and could see if there was any letters coming in. So she would get everything as quick as anybody could back home. So anyway, I had applied for an early out to come back to school. And then you could be fighting whatever and then come back. I mean, it's the most amazing thing. So I'm out in the field, and I told her, because I would write these things and letters, sometimes I was able to seal them up and send them back to my wife, my young wife, and of course she would read it and burn it or throw it away, whatever it was. But I told her if I was going to get this early out, that I would send her an envelope and had stars all over it, okay? And so finally, when I was out in the field, I had 101 days, and I get this letter from the U.S. government Army saying that your early out has been approved. I went from 101 days to 11, just like that, in country. I got on the next helicopter. I told them I'd do anything you want me to do back at base camp, but I want to get out of here. I want to go back home. And so I got on the next helicopter and came back home. But anyway, I wrote this letter, put all these stars on it, and sent it home. Did that so that her mom could open the letter. Okay, got this? Her mom, she was living at home, so she gets this letter with stars. She had told Mom, you can open this and find out what's going on. So she gets this letter, her mom opens it. Sure enough, I'm coming home. Instead of 101 days, I'm coming home in 11 days. So her mom calls my wife at the office, tells her that I'm coming home in 11 days. My wife starts crying. Everybody in the office knows I'm in Vietnam. They thought I'd been killed. But anyway, it was one of those things that you come up with things, you make things work, it really kind of in bad situations. But I appreciated so much the communication. I don't know how many of you were over in Vietnam and your family would send you something to eat over there. Anybody? There you go. Okay, hot sauce? Okay. Well, my wife would send chocolate chip cookies. Okay. And she would pack them in popcorn. Everything tasted like popcorn. By the time we got all this stuff, you know, and the chocolate chip cookies tasted like popcorn. They were not broken, but they tasted like popcorn. It was the neatest thing. You know, we would go back, we would be out in the field for a while, maybe 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time or whatever, and come back in to base camp and go through the mess hall. This was much better, by the way. We go through the mess hall, right? And I don't know if y'all can remember this. It was get the green chicken, or the chicken, you know, that was cooked chicken, green beans, maybe mashed potatoes, and at the end of the line they had peppermint ice cream. You know, and they put everything on the same plate. You had to rush back to sit down so that you could eat it before everything melted and tasted like peppermint ice cream. Right? So we did it, we made it, we came back, and here we are. Question? Yes, sir.
I'm curious as to what you play golf. And
Huh.
back then, actually, the golf is all I knew about was Davis Love.
Right.
And I think Bubba Watson's the only other person I know that was self-taught. So who taught you
Well,
golf?
when I came back, I was finishing school, ended up going to Kennesaw State, and I had 1 quarter left and only had one subject left. So I was done at 9 o'clock in the morning. It was from 8 to 9. My wife worked, and she didn't get home until 6. So I had from 9 to 6 to do something. And Pine Tree Country Club was right next to Kennesaw State. And they had a really good program for juniors or, you know, young people or whatever, and it was fairly inexpensive. So I joined at Pine Tree and started playing golf there. First 18-hole on a normal golf course I ever played was at Pine Tree in March of 1970. And I was playing with a set of clubs my wife gave me. She bought at Rich's for Christmas that year, 69. So I joined the club in 70. Bert Seagrave was the head professional there, and he didn't care about teaching me at all, but he just gave me a book. He said, okay, learn how to do this. You know, so I learned how to play golf from a book. It was Ben Hogan's 5 Fundamentals of Modern Golf. And so I went through that whole book. And so I was a math major in school, 3 calculus courses, you know, all this different stuff. So I learned how to play golf the same way. By doing this, it would enable me to do this. So the 5 Fundamentals was a perfect book for me. And so that's how I learned how to play. And it was always put in a position where people were better than I was. And so I had to either get better or stop, or that was the mentality. And golf was a perfect thing for me because I played baseball all my life. We were playing for the Georgia Coat League Championship up in Rome, Georgia, one year. And I was pitching the final game. We had won every game, so we had a chance to lose once and still win the next game. And so the coach let me pitch that game. So I was pitching kind of like a one-hitter, and the shortstop made an error. We got beat 1-0. So I kind of learned that I wanted to do something where if I won, it was because of me, and if I lost, it was because of me, and golf is a perfect sport for that. And you can go out and play by yourself in golf. I never played baseball by myself, so.
I want to know about the guy that nobody ever talks about. Did you use the same caddy the whole time, and how important is the caddy to you in winning tournaments?
Thank you for that question. Caddy, my opinion, they carried the bag and had to have a positive attitude. The only thing I told my caddies is never say no, and never say don't do that, or don't do this. You know, don't hit it left, don't hit it right. It's always hit it left or hit it right. It's always a positive thing. But let me just tell you this. There was a Japanese guy that I did a lot of business with, designed some golf courses with and all that kind of stuff. He had a young boy that he wanted to learn English. He wanted him to have the experience. So he said, can you caddy would I let him caddy for me for a year? I said, sure, it's fine. Spoke no English. No English. So that's how much communication is, okay? So anyway, I'm playing the PGA Championship down in West Palm in 1987. I ended up winning the tournament in 1987 with a caddy that spoke no English. No, I take it back. He knew 1 or 2 words, and one of them was yes. So every time I ask him, is this the right club? Yes. Do I need to hit this to the right? Yes. Does this putt break 6 inches? Yes. So I'm just saying that the positive attitude is really important. And there was never a negative comment whatsoever in this. One of the biggest tournaments I ever won was in Japan. It had a $300,000 purse, which is, what, 4th or 5th, 8th place now. But anyway, it was first prize then. And my caddy had caddied for me, and they use lady caddies, and it's a house caddy. They caddy there all the time. And she had caddied for me for 3 years. And one, I didn't know she spoke any English at all. And two, I didn't take into consideration that she had been on this same golf course for many, many years, and I never asked her anything. So I finally got smart enough, after all this time, I'd say, Caddy-san, and I would hold my little thing up here, and I said, at the cup, the cup, does it, is it left side, right side, is it outside, and she says, I would go like this, and she said, ended up winning the tournament by about 3 or 4 shots, all right? And I made a whole lot of putts. And I found out really how dumb I had been over the last 3 years and how smart she was. So it was funny that, people do have knowledge, and caddies can really help you. But those that depend on their caddies as much as some of the players, I think, do, the wrong person's playing, basically. I feel like the caddy should be playing. But the game has changed so much now. I played in the Atlanta Classic up at Sugarloaf, I guess the last year that they had it over there before they moved it away. And I went out to the practice tee, and I hadn't played in a PGA Tour event for a while, but this is one. And there were 3 people standing behind every professional. There was the psychologist, the trainer, the caddy, and maybe the manager, maybe 4 people. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I mean, Trevino says he didn't want anybody teaching him or telling him what to do that never won a U.S. Open. So it's kind of, one of those that the thing has changed as far as what needs or what a player thinks he needs, because by the time they're 10 years, 9 years old, they're getting all this mental health help in how to play the game. But they end up not knowing how to play if nobody's there telling them. And all these guys and me, we had to learn how to do it, how to play, how to change. Yeah, he's talking about it at Oakmont. I won the U.S. Open at Oakmont up in Pittsburgh. And he was talking about that he had been there in '62 when Palmer and Nicklaus were playing. Yes, and said he were talking about they hit a 1-iron on the 8th green. When we played it in '83, it's 237 yards, par 3, and I hit my 3-wood about 220 yards, 225 yards. So it was hard making a decision between hitting a driver and a 3-wood on that hole. And the last 2 days, I missed 1 green. Out of 36 holes, I missed 1 green. My only bogeys were 3 putts the last 2 days. But on that hole, I had to hit 3-wood the last day, and that was one of my 3 putts. I hit 3-wood on the front of the green. It's a very big green, ended up 3-putting and making bogey. But it's being around some of these guys, and we were talking about this earlier. I was playing down, it doesn't take much to change your whole attitude on golf. Y'all know that, don't you? It doesn't take maybe one good shot and hey, you're fit for the day. I always hate it when I go out and have a putter and I'm putting terrible with this putter, and then I make a long putt on the last hole. Now I don't know what to do the next day, because I couldn't wait to change that putter. Now I make a putt. I said, well, maybe it was me. I could have been. But, playing with these guys, and they all have a little bit of a unique characteristic about them. But I got a chance to talk to Nicklaus quite a bit. It was 2 years ago. He calls me up and asks me if I would want. Okay, now this question doesn't happen very much. All right, would you go with me to Turkmenistan? All right. How many people's had that question? Jack says, I'm opening one of the golf courses that I designed over there, and I want you to go with me and Nick Price and Andy North. Okay, so we fly in his airplane, Palm Beach to Turkmenistan nonstop. Now, that's a pretty good way to go. If you're going to go to Turkmenistan, I recommend going that route. Turkmenistan, for all you people who don't know where Turkmenistan is, When I was there at the hotel out in the lobby, one of the interpreters said, "You see that mountain up there?" And I said, "Yeah, I can see the mountain." He said, "See the fence on top?" I said, "Yeah, I see the fence." The other side is Iran. So we're 6 miles from the Iranian border in Turkmenistan, all right? But the premier, or the head guy there, decided that because of the tourists that come, that he needed a hotel and a golf course. So he built, Jack Nicklaus designed it. So we flew over and opened his golf course. So just to let you know, you may have not seen this in the record books, but Nick Price and I were the first winner of the Turkmenistan Open. It's all right. And we beat the team of Jack Nicklaus and Andy North. So, but we have a trophy. Nick Price and I have a trophy in the pro shop in Turkmenistan. They actually gave us that. They gave us this trophy. Now it was really a pretty trophy. It had all these little gems and stuff in it and stuff like that. And Nick and I were trying to figure, okay, now do we take this home or do we leave it here? And I said, all that stuff's fake. I said, don't worry about it. Let's just leave it here. Leave it here. Okay, when I got back home, the diplomat from over in Turkmenistan, our U.S. diplomat, we do have a diplomat over there. The U.S. diplomat sent me a note or whatever and said, really appreciate you leaving that trophy here in Turkmenistan. He says, worth about $30,000. And so he went in. And I text Nick. I said, Nick, did you have any clue that this thing was, you and I had fought over this thing. So he was going to bring it home. But anyway, it's in the pro shop at Turkmenistan. So if you ever get over there, just go in the pro shop and you'll see the Nick Price and Larry Nelson trophy in Turkmenistan. It's really amazing, and I'm glad you asked that. It's really amazing. The PGA Tour really has the tournament staff, the executive branch of the PGA Tour, and the players themselves have a very strong involvement with military members. And it's been so refreshing to me, being a Vietnam veteran and knowing, coming back in late 60s, early 70s, mid 60s. It was not the same attitude towards the military then as we see now, which I'm so appreciative of that. But the PGA Tour, really, they do a lot. I know, watch the tournaments on the weekend. And you see that most of the tournaments on the 18th hole or 16th hole, one of those holes, they'll have a service member there that actually is tending the flag and, putting it back in. So they really are involved with military, and I really do appreciate that fact. Oh, I tell you what, I started early on. I was 40-some-odd years or whatever it's been that I played out there. Early on, there were a lot more characters. Now there's not so many. A lot of them have more character now, but there were a lot of characters then. One guy, I got to tell you this story. One guy that I played with, and it was Des Moines, Iowa, or not Des Moines, Iowa. It's the Quad Cities area, all those areas. But we had a tournament there, and of course it's not a very big tournament and all that. And I'm playing with this guy that has he gets mad a lot. And it doesn't take much to get him mad. So, but anyway, we're playing the 10th hole, and he's putted awful. And the greens were not very good. I have to admit, the greens were not very good. But he missed this putt from about 2 feet, and he took his putter, and he just buried it almost up to the grip in the green. Okay. All right. So there's an official up on the hill and saw this, and so he gets in his cart and he runs down to the green and he goes up to the guy and he says, I saw what you did. He said, that's going to be a $50 fine. So the guy looked at him. He said, $50 for what I did right there. And the official said, yes, it's going to be $50. So he reached in his pocket, got out a $100 bill, slapped it in his hand, and took the putter and goes, So So I'm just saying that, you know, it wouldn't happen this day and time. I mean, they have a hard time finding anybody for doing anything for some reason. There's so many lawyers and all that stuff that's making money, but a lot of good characters out there. You know, I never played with Doug Sanders. I met Doug, and he was out at a lot of the tournaments that we were out in. He was always getting autographs and trying to raise money for this, that, and the other. So he was doing a lot of stuff for charity, but I never did have a chance to play with him. Well, on his shoes and partying, yeah, both of those. So, you know, when you leave Vietnam, it's not where you want to go back to. I mean, that's not your feeling when you actually leave Vietnam. And actually, NBC about 5 years ago asked me if I would do a special, if I would be willing to go back to Vietnam and them take me over where I was and all this, and they wanted to do this. It was one of the programs. This was supposed to be their initial program. Jimmy Rogers was doing it, and he did several of them with different people, but he wanted me to go back and do it. And I said, Jimmy, I just don't feel comfortable about doing that right now. Well, a lot changes in 5 years, I guess, or so. But anyway, I got this cruise line call me up and asked me if I would be the golf host for this cruise, 2-week cruise, where? Southeast Asia. So it goes from Singapore to Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. 3 stops in Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh City, Da Nang, Hanoi. And I get to play golf, or supposed to play golf, I don't get to play golf anymore. I have to play golf. So I'm playing golf in Saigon at a course there that Nicholas actually built or designed. So I'm going to see Nicholas next week. I'm playing at his charity hospital Pro-Am down in West Palm. So I get a chance to ask him about, well, what do you think about this golf course? You know, but then we go to Da Nang, and I don't know who did that golf course there, and then we go up to Hanoi, and I don't know if they have a golf course up there. So, but I get to go back, and the good thing about it is my wife gets to go. And I can just tell you this, you know, for all of us, and this includes every service member, every person that's served, the spouse is at home but go through probably worse than what we do. And so for me to have the opportunity to actually take her back over to see some of the areas that I was in is a good thing for me. And hopefully it'll be a good thing for her, especially staying in a luxury ship while we do it, you know. So we just go over and look. I mean, it's quite a bit different than the last time I was there. So to have that opportunity, I think, will be great. I won't have the opportunity to go back to the same little area that I was in or spent most of my time, but I certainly can see it, probably from where we were. I was a good guy. I was a good guy. I did what everybody told me to do, and they picked me. I got out of Vietnam as a buck sergeant. You know, I left. They said, we'll make you an E6 if you want to stay. No, I'm okay. But yeah, they just kind of gave me that role. Main reason is because I could read a topographical map, you know. And so when we traveled, when we went as companies, my squad was at point. When we go in platoon size, my squad was in front, basically because I could get them from here to there because I could read a map. And so it helped me when I started doing golf course design, because now I can read a topographical map, you know, so I could do all that. But that was basically it. I got that position not because I was braver than anybody or smarter or whatever. I could read a map. It was probably a good and bad thing, you know. I'd have been in the back if I couldn't have read a map, probably. Yeah. Well, you know, I had a guy, his boy from Kentucky, and he walked point for me the whole time, and we never lost anybody. So I mean, get down, get up, go, or whatever. So in the area that we were in, which was kind of nice, well, I say it's kind of nice, never got hit in the front. They would always wait to see how big a unit it was before they opened up on us. And so a lot of times we were across the rice paddy before, all that happened. So it was kind of a good thing in that area, I guess. Top 3 golf courses. If I had to play my last round, it'd probably be Cypress Point out in Monterey. It's 3 golf courses in one, nice forest, sand dunes, and ocean all together. Butler National in Chicago was my favorite competitive golf course. I won there once, finished second 3 other times. It was just one of those golf courses where I just enjoyed. That's where they played the Western Open. I enjoyed going up there and playing. I just felt like I had an advantage because the fairways were real narrow, greens were small. And the other one would have to be Oakmont, only because what you said is so accurate about Oakmont. They asked the members, they said, okay, how long do you need to get ready for the U.S. Open here? And this is the members. They were very proud of the place. They said, well, probably about 2 weeks. We'll need to we have to cut the rough and then let the greens grow out a little bit. So they always think that their greens should be about 15 on the stem, and so they have to slow them up for the U.S. Open. So I won't tell you everything that he said. I'll kind of put it in a Weiskopf. He said, how was Weiskopf? And honestly, he's bipolar. I mean, when I say he's bipolar, I mean, you can walk up to him one day and he was your best friend. Larry, how's the family? How's everybody doing? Are you doing okay? You feel okay today? Next day, he'd look right through you and not say a word to you. So you never knew which Weiskopf you were going to play with that day. And, I did like I did most other people. I just didn't say much, I mean, one of those things that Mom told me, says, if you don't have anything to say, don't say it. Some people talk without saying anything. I mean, so Mom just said, just don't talk unless you're spoken to. So I fit right in the Army pretty well, too. So it was, it was great. I'm a very quiet person. I am a very quiet person. When I was in school, I took public speaking. I lasted 2 classes because it scared me to death. It just literally scared me to death. But since the Army, since golf, I've spoken at Billy Graham crusades. I've done, so the fear of speaking is not there anymore. I get excited about it. I get excited about being able to speak to people, especially when you're talking to people. Let me just end by saying this. And this is, this group of people, this group of men and women have a special bond that only people who served and who did can have. There are things that you know, things that you felt, things that you can share, things that other people really don't understand. They can believe you, but they can't really understand you like your brothers and sisters in here can. And it's the same way with golf. It's a very closed group of people, professional golf. They know things and they have feelings and they do that is only to them. Only they can understand it. Psychologists try to explain it, and but they don't really know. It's just that. So I was very fortunate. I just want me end in this. I was very fortunate to be able to be with a group of guys and gals that understood me back then and understood what we went through back then. And I was with a group of guys, my career was the same thing. We could explain, we could tell people what it's like, but until you're in the middle of it, nobody really understands. So I appreciate you. But I only live, my GPS said it was 18 minutes from here. So when I came up here, I live right across Chattahoochee River. So, but time is up. I heard a bell go off. Was that for me?
Oh, no.
No. But listen, thank you, gentlemen, ladies. I appreciate y'all not going to sleep, and it was a good time for me. Thank you.
Has something for you. Thank you so much. We would have to take a vote to make you a member, so I don't know how close that would be.
Let me leave the room.
On behalf of this organization, I want you to have this copy of this book. About 100 of us, through much encouragement, blood, sweat, and tears, it's about 160 stories in here of Vietnam that you might find interesting. You might be able to relate to every one of them. I don't know.
Nope.
So I appreciate that. Every branch of the service, every type of service, from the beginning all the way through is represented in there. So we want to thank you as a token of our thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
God
it.
bless
Thank you very much.